Imagine walking into your favorite local diner, only to be turned away solely because of the way you dress. Now, picture that person isn't just anyone, but a prominent political figure whose calm reaction would soon send shockwaves through an entire community. Before we dive into this remarkable story, please hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and share your own experiences of unexpected judgment in the comments below. Let's get into it. It was just past 11:45 a.m. at Owen's Diner, a long-standing fixture in the heart of Springfield, Ohio. The neon sign, faded yet familiar, cast a gentle glow over a modest parking lot. Inside, the diner hummed with everyday life. Businessmen with briefcases, retirees swapping friendly nods, and the unmistakable aroma of grilled burgers and freshly brewed coffee weaving through the air. JD Vance, a well-known figure who had spent the day in back-to-back meetings and policy debates, pulled into the parking lot. Tired yet determined for a quiet meal before his long drive home, he stepped into the diner. His attire was simple, a MAGA hat perched on his head, a subtle nod to his political stance, and he carried a small briefcase that hinted at a life of public service. Almost immediately, JD sensed a shift. The hostess behind the counter, who had greeted regulars with warm smiles all day, froze for just a heartbeat when her eyes met his. A fleeting look of uncertainty crossed her face, and a few customers glanced his way, some with raised eyebrows, others with whispered murmurs. After JD placed his order at the counter, the atmosphere turned tense. The hostess hesitated, then with a firm tone that brooked no argument said, "Sir, I'm sorry, but we can't serve you today." A murmur rippled through the room. JD paused, letting the words hang in the air as the diner fell into a heavy silence. A man at a nearby booth muttered under his breath, while a woman set her coffee down a little too forcefully. JD, known for his measured demeanor, simply asked, "Could I speak with a manager, please?" The hostess's eyes darted briefly to the kitchen before she whispered, "Just one moment, sir." With that, she slipped away, leaving JD standing amid curious stares and hushed whispers. If you're intrigued by this turn of events, please hit the like button and comment below. Have you ever been unfairly judged at first glance? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that challenge our assumptions and spark real conversations. After what felt like an eternity, the door to a back room opened, and a broad-shouldered man in his early 50s stepped out. His name tag read Don, and though his apron was stained from a long shift, his gaze was steady, almost challenging. Without a trace of the usual pleasantries, Don said, "I hear you have a question." His tone was neither warm nor hostile. It was a challenge. JD, unruffled, met his eyes and replied evenly, "Yes, I'd like to know why I was refused service." Don's jaw tightened, and for a moment the entire diner seemed to lean in. "Look," Don began, his voice low, "around here, people have strong opinions. I run this diner and I have to protect my community's values. When someone walks in wearing that hat, it stirs up trouble. Emotions run high, and I have a job to keep the peace." JD's eyes flicked around the room. The customers' faces told a story. Some nodded in agreement with Don's statement, while others looked on with disbelief. "But what if I were just a regular customer?" JD pressed calmly. "If I came in without any preconceptions, if I wasn't a figure everyone talks about, would this conversation even be necessary?" Don hesitated. His eyes shifted between JD and the silent patrons, then he sighed. "Maybe it's not personal for you, but it's personal for them. They feel judged before they even know who you are." The tension in the diner was palpable now. JD leaned forward, his voice steady but firm. "I understand protecting your customers is important, but isn't it also about giving people a chance? I'm here for a meal, just a simple, quiet meal. I'm not here to create conflict." A young customer seated in a booth near the window snickered softly, as if this were the best drama of the day. Don's expression hardened slightly as he responded, "Sometimes, sir, actions speak louder than words. Yesterday, you weren't just wearing a hat. You were sending a message, and here that message made some folks feel unwelcome." JD's response was measured. "I'm well aware that appearances can lead to assumptions. I've been in debates, in boardrooms, and I know the power of a first impression. But shouldn't we look beyond that?" He paused, letting his words sink in. "I'm not here to stir trouble. I'm here to experience a meal just like anyone else. And if you refuse me based solely on what I wear, aren't you also refusing the chance to truly know me?" The silence that followed was heavy, each word resonating in the minds of everyone present. Even the clatter from the kitchen seemed to pause momentarily. Don's eyes softened for a brief moment, and the tension in the room began to ease. He looked at JD, then at the customers, some of whom now appeared thoughtful, others still uncertain. "You know," Don said quietly, "in this community, opinions run deep. I don't choose these policies lightly. I'm trying to keep things calm, to avoid any more heated debates." JD nodded slowly, his tone compassionate. "I get that, but sometimes silence isn't the solution. If we keep our minds closed, we never learn anything new. I may be a public figure, but I'm also a man who's just trying to have a meal without causing a scene." At that moment, the diner's atmosphere shifted. One older gentleman in a faded blue jacket murmured, "I've seen tough times, but I've also seen change when folks listened." Another customer, a woman in her 30s, sighed and said softly, "Maybe we all need to give each other a little more grace." Don's posture relaxed further as he sighed and then said, "All right then, let's finish this conversation the right way. Have a seat." With that, he stepped aside and gestured toward an empty booth. JD took a seat, his calm presence now slowly winning over even the skeptical glances. "Thank you," he said, his voice almost a whisper. The conversation that followed was unexpectedly sincere. JD and Don spoke about assumptions, community, and the weight of appearances. JD shared how, throughout his career, he'd learned that people often judge too quickly, sometimes based on something as simple as a hat. Don, in turn, admitted that running a business meant making tough calls, even if it meant alienating someone who might not even deserve it. A brief pause filled the space as the two men regarded each other, one representing the public, the other the voice of a community trying to keep order. Then, in a surprising turn, Don cleared his throat and said, "I suppose if you were just another customer, maybe things wouldn't have been this complicated, but you carry a weight of expectations with you, and that makes folks nervous." JD's reply was gentle but resolute. "Maybe so, but I'd rather face those expectations head-on than be silenced by them. We're all human. We make mistakes, and we learn from them." The words hung in the air, softening the once hostile atmosphere. The diners began to relax. Whispers turned into nods, and even the young man in the booth, who had scoffed earlier, now listened with genuine interest. If this story of unexpected confrontation and honest dialogue is resonating with you, please hit that like button and leave your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever experienced judgment based solely on appearances? And if you haven't yet, subscribe to join us as we explore more real-life moments that challenge our perceptions. As the conversation continued, the tension gave way to reflection. The diner, once a battleground of opinions, slowly returned to a familiar hum, forks clinking, orders being called, and conversations resuming. But something had shifted. The encounter between JD and Don had sparked a broader conversation among the customers. An elderly customer, who had earlier been silent, remarked, "I worked for decades and saw my share of disappointments, but when someone stops to listen, it gives you hope." Another chimed in, "Maybe we should all learn to look beyond the surface." By the end of the day, the incident at Owen's Diner had transformed from a moment of exclusion to one of unexpected understanding. JD finished his meal in quiet contemplation, while Don, now more reflective than defensive, returned to his duties with a promise to reassess his policies. The diner's patrons, too, left with a lingering thought that assumptions can isolate us, but open dialogue can bridge divides. So, what do you think? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between walking away and staying to have a difficult conversation? Share your stories in the comments below. Your experience might just inspire someone else to listen rather than judge. If you found this story as thought-provoking as we did, please hit that like button, subscribe for more in-depth stories of real human encounters, and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. Remember, sometimes the most transformative moments come when we choose to talk instead of turn away. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep listening, keep questioning, and let kindness lead the way.